Shabbat shalom. 5 days, 5 hours, and 45 minutes. 5 days, 5 hours, and 45 minutes. How are you feeling? People keep commenting that it feels longer than 5 days, 5 hours, and 45 minutes. Maybe this is what expansiveness feels like. Maybe this is what it means to distinguish this Shabbat from last Shabbat, to feel senses of renewed possibility, and to also know that there is still much work ahead. In the 12-step program that goes along with so many people's journeys of recovery, of confronting addiction, of finding ways toward a different path, we learn that the first step is about letting go. It's about surrender. It's about recognizing that we cannot control everything. That ultimately, no matter how powerful we feel, we are not powerful over everything. We are more than anything powerless when push comes to shove. We surrender. What an incredible moment to be living through in the United States, when the president of our country can take some of this lesson to heart and say, it is not about me. There is something to surrender here. There's a recognition of giving power up in the service of something bigger. What an incredible lesson in leadership. I can only imagine how we might look back on where we were 5 days, 5 hours, and 48 minutes, am I counting right? To go. As perhaps a great, maybe the most necessary turning point in the history of our country and the world as we know it, the world as we have come to fear it, and the world as we want it to be, the world that must be, to be recognizable that the possibility is still right here, that proverbial arc can bend toward justice. This week's Torah portion, as student Rabbi Adam, our intern Adam, just introduced to us, is Pinchas in the book of Bamidbar. The entire book of Bamidbar, the entire book of Numbers, is the Israelites, us, our ancestors. We were there, we say, wandering through the wilderness. Moses, our teacher, begins the book at the age of 80, leading us. And as we move toward the end of Bamidbar, the end of Moshe's leadership before the speeches that he will give to us, really the entire fifth book of the Torah, are 30 chapters worth of Moshe's final speeches. Moshe himself is confronted with the end of a generation. Just 2 weeks ago, in one Torah portion, Moshe loses his sister Miriam, his brother Aharon, in the sight of all of the people. What an amazing and challenging position to be in as a leader, and to confront all that in this arc from age 80 to, we say, age 120 in these 40 years of wandering. In this Torah portion, 5 daughters of Tzlofechad, 5 sisters, they are named one by one, come to Moshe with a request. Our father, they say, has died with no male heirs. And the tradition at this point is that if there are no sons of a man who has died, the closest other male relatives would inherit. We wish to inherit. The system isn't right the way it is. They say to Moshe. They advocate. They name a place that the Torah has not addressed up until now. And Moshe, I think to his great credit, does not in the moment simply say no or yes. What Moshe seems to say is, I don't know. I need some time to think about this. I need to consult someone else. It's nice to have God kind of on auto dial in these situations. But there's a lesson here also in leadership, right? We talk about Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe is our greatest teacher. And part of what we're learning from him in this Torah portion is that part of leadership is knowing when to say no, when to say, I don't know. When to say, I have more questions. When to say, I want to be in this, but also it's not just about me. I want to help you, but I can't do it alone. Moshe comes back to them with God's teaching that the plea is just. And these 5 sisters not only create a new teaching that influences their own destinies, financial futures, ability to inherit, but becomes settled Torah for us, influences the generations to come, influences our legacy. All of this in a time when we could only imagine Moshe is digesting that he will soon need to step back. When Moshe is willing to say, I don't know, and when a group of 5 people come together and speak up for what is needed. Dr. King, Alav Shalom, Martin Luther King Jr., has taught us that we should not expect that an oppressor will grant freedom to the oppressed. That when someone is oppressed, that when someone does not have the rights that they should expect, that it must be demanded. The paradox of the first of the 12 steps, it seems to me, is that perhaps by recognizing our powerlessness, by letting go, by surrendering, there is actually a new expansiveness, a new openness. By saying we don't know, by surrendering, by making ourselves open, we create an opportunity for something new to happen. If you're a person who likes boats, maybe the analogy is you're on a sailboat, and instead of fighting the wind, you learn how to just be with the wind, to kind of give into it in a way. And the more we can do that, the more, in the end, there is energy, renewed energy in our sails. We've learned a great lesson from the President of the United States this week, a lesson that has brought a certain level of unity and energy and connectedness, exhalation and inhalation once again, that I hope is only the beginning of a sense of renewal in the months ahead for us to, like the daughters of Tzlofechad, step up and demand the things that are right. And I think that not only do we have the opportunity to do that, but we have the opportunity to remind ourselves that we cannot do it alone. This is not a time for isolation individually. This is not a time to crawl into our corners or our, whether our monolithic online algorithms or whatever the things are that end up separating ourselves from one another. This is a time to boldly connect with people who are different than we are, because I think one of the ways in which we've been asked to be divided in this country is to assume that difference is bad, that difference creates an impenetrable boundary. And I think it's up to us to take this energy, not just with our family, with our friends, with our most obvious communities perhaps, but to expand beyond that. To use the energy to have the conversation with the relative you're struggling with, the friend who you feel like you silenced their notifications online, that you've questioned the friendship. There are opportunities right now with this energy to be able to say, I don't know. To be able to recognize that a future for our country and the world isn't simply about blue, red, but actually about hearing each other's stories and prompting one another to answer the question, like, why? Why are we concerned? What do we want to know? What are you worried about? What's keeping you up at night? So that we can approach one another with compassion and form new connections. And I think this week's Torah portion and President Biden's actions can remind us that I don't know all the answers is not necessarily a place of weakness. It's actually a place of great strength because it models being open to learning more, to taking in more, and perhaps people who haven't had the opportunity to read this week's Torah portion or observe that Moshe himself says, I don't know, I need to get a consultation on this. Perhaps we can model that in our interactions with other people. And even as we stand up for what we believe in, we can make room to hear others, to hear other points of disagreement, and to find points of commonality as well. Because I think ultimately the greatest truths come through dialogue, through connection, through recognizing that when we can surrender even a little, when we can give up that power over, when we can connect, whether it's with our four siblings or our community here or people we haven't been in touch with for a while, there is so much power to be gained, power to connect, power to cross divides that maybe we didn't realize could be bridged. Power to, at such a powerful inflection point in the history of this country and the world, to bring us toward a world of more hope, of democracy, of kindness, of connectedness, of justice and peace. Shabbat shalom.